watching Untitled Studios.
Hello, and good morning, good afternoon, and good night, wherever you guys are watching. Today, I'm going to be drawing Sailor Moon. I just thought it'd be kind of cool to draw Sailor Moon. So I'm just going to start sketching her right now. Obviously, I'm using the sketch card format again, because I have a show coming up, and I am running low on sketch cards. They are original pieces, and it's a good option for people who don't have wall space for prints. So they get sketch cards, and some people frame them or they put them in baseball card holders. A lot of artists do sketch cards. I like to do them live at the show, but it's nice to have my folder kind of filled up with other things so people can see my range. Sailor Moon is one of my favorite 90s animes, just because of the Toonami block. I really enjoyed it, mostly just because of the design. I was always watching it just to wait for Dragon Ball to come on, so here I'm just kind of doing a loose sketch. I'm most likely going to tighten it up with the pencils. The reason why I picked Sailor Moon 2 is I get asked a lot about drawing anime. And I know it's a really popular subject, so I thought, why not draw anime? The last video I did Saitama from One Punch Man, but I'm not sure if that really counts. That's because that's kind of a spoof on anime. So if you watch the first episode, the first villain looked a lot like Piccolo, and they're always making fun of anime and exposition, and so to me it's like a spoof, whereas this is like one of the original American ones that got America really into anime. It's Sailor Moon. I mean, Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon are those things where even people who don't really watch anime anymore can pick out the characters. And that just speaks to how popular Toonami was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And a lot of my style came from anime and heavy metal magazine. Heavy metal really was an influence on me for drawing monsters and stuff like that. So here I'm just going to draw a line to kind of tell me where the eyes are going to be. I'm going to draw another line for the nose, and then right underneath it, the mouth. And so I know where the mouth and nose are going to be. I draw another line. She's not looking directly at the camera. It's kind of like a side view. And then she does wear a crown, so we're going to put that in there. The hair, I can work around that, because remember, this is just a sketch. You can kind of go a little free with it. It doesn't have to be right on the money. This is where you get to omit and add things, where you're going to tighten them up with the pencil stage. And eventually these commentary videos will be turned into speed drawings. I just thought it'd be kind of cool to break up the monotony and not just upload a speed drawing video. It's nice to kind of break it up. And while I'm sketching this out, I do want to thank ATJT Travels. He's been awesome. He literally comments on every video. super positive and is always sharing the videos. There's so many of you that do that, and you know, I wish I had all the channels written out on a piece of paper right now, just so I can thank everybody personally, but I can't thank him enough. And also Pusha Studios for really getting me over that 1K hump. They featured me on the channel, and it was huge. I remember I was sick that day, and I just shared with them. I'm like, look, all the hard work, you know, I'm almost there. And later that night, they had a live stream and featured me on there. And when I went to check my YouTube channel, it was literally like at 919, and then the next moment I check, and it was at almost 1,000. So I'm super grateful for them, and just the community as a whole. I don't think I could have gotten, you know, this much so quickly without, you know, channels like Pusha Studios, who, you know, feature me on the channel, and I've done some artwork for them in the past. So one of the first real friendships I made on YouTube and Gamer Thumb TV as well. So I feel good enough right now with the hair now to really start detailing the face. Now, anime eyes are super not complicated, but one little thing that's off and it can really throw off the picture. So we don't want that to happen. So I am going to really be petting this line quite a bit, because I want the eyes to come out not perfect, because, you know, nothing's perfect, but I really want it to match the Sailor Moon look. Alright, so we got the top of the eyelid there, and just so that it's somewhat symmetrical, I'm going to do the top of the eyelid on this one as well. Because now we have the body pretty much mapped out. I wish I could draw so much more on here, but you know, space is limited on a sketch card. Alright, so from here, we can start on the bottom of the eyelid. And we're going to keep it light, because there's some eyelashes here. And here. Also, on Twitter, the poll finished for the video game documentary that I want to work on, and people unanimously voted for Ayami Kojima, which is the concept artist and cover artist for the Castlevania series. And I wanted to do one on video game art, because video game art was very influential to me, just as much as anime, because I would sit there playing a video game like Jet Set Radio and Metal Gear Solid, and the art in those games actually interests me more than the actual video game. Like Metal Gear, I've never really been a huge fan of the Metal Gear series, but the art in it has just been amazing. So I thought, hey, a lot of channels cover the games, but not a lot of channels are covering the actual art. And since I'm an art channel, I thought, well, hey, why not do something a little different? And that's the whole thing with the channel, is just to be different. Now, I did notice something once I sketched this out, is that her head is a little bit bigger. So we're going to have to fix that, which is perfectly okay. So we're just going to extend the hair here in the back. And this is why it's important to sketch your pictures out, because you can find those little mistakes once the sketch is made and try to fix them. So here we go. She's got a little moon earring. Alright, sorry about that. Had to blow my nose. I swear, I get colds on the weirdest time of the year. All winter long, I didn't get one cold. I definitely was dealing with a lot of the cold itself, but I didn't get an actual cold. And now, it's technically summer. I say technically because part of the country I live in, it feels like we only get summer once for 1 week in the year. So I'm filling in the pupils. This is not going to be the final version of the pupils. And then put a couple of lines there, and then we're going to draw the ear. And then this bandana that hangs from her. I'm not going to draw the lines on the bandana because we're going to use the white marker for that. There's just not a lot of real estate on here to really put that detail in there. So now I'm going to grab my pencil, my trusty 0.5 Graph Gear pencil. It's my go-to pencil for lining sketch cards. I do have a thinner one, but I am really heavy-handed, so I normally break the tip on it. And we don't want to do that. So I'm going to start with the eyes, because the sketch is already done. Now it's just tightening these lines up. You can get really loose with it. The only problem with getting loose at this stage is that when you do ink it, it tends to make it harder to erase the pencil lines. If you're using alcohol-based markers, those pencil lines can get taken care of with the alcohol in the markers, but it just looks messy, and I like the picture to look really neat, kind of like the Saitama. Once it was finished, you could still see a couple mistakes, but it wasn't too crazy, and I don't want the mistakes to really show up once we got the ink in there. And this part of the pupil is going to be white, so that's why I drew that little line to kind of indicate that. And then the top of the eyelids are really dark, because it's supposed to convey that they're eyelashes as well. And that's the thing about anime, is it might look complicated, but they do it in a way to simplify the details of the face. Alright, and now kind of do a little point for the nose, which, you know, we can play around with. You don't have to leave it as is. I mean, that's the benefit of doing things in stages, is that you can go back and alter things as you move along. From stage to stage, you'll notice the drawing is going to look more different every time you do a pass through. I'm trying my best not to pet the line on this, because you don't want the habit of doing the same line over when you move to the ink stage. You want it to be as seamless as possible. Now, I mean, it's easier said than done, just because the sketch card, oh man, it moves around a lot. If you see here, I have my left hand kind of holding the paper down because of the movement. And then put a little bit here. And then add that little line there. And don't forget to leave a comment. Just letting me know if you're having any difficulties with something. I could definitely do a video on that. What you enjoy, if there's a certain character you'd like for me to draw on the channel. All recommendations, all questions. I check every comment, so I don't like to leave anybody hanging. The comment section is the best way to get to me, honestly, because I spend way more time on YouTube than I do on any of my social media. Maybe Twitter. I'm on there quite a bit. Facebook likes to censor my YouTube posts, so I'm not on there as much. So I always tell people the best way to really, get to me is just leaving me a comment on Facebook or Twitter. I love to hear from you guys, and we're just gonna draw a little line from the ear here. And this sketch card will be for sale. All the sketch cards are $20. So if you are interested, please let me know. I have a lot of fun drawing these because I noticed that when I do these smaller cards, when I move to a bigger piece, for example, if I do a 8x11 or 11x17 size paper, the little techniques that I use to really conserve space, they transfer really well to bigger paper. I don't know if it's because you're working in such a small space that when you do move to a bigger medium, it just transfers well. Practice makes perfect, but also challenging yourself is more important than practice. You can practice constantly, but if you keep practicing the same thing, you're never going to see growth. So pushing yourself and trying new things is the way you're really going to see the growth in your art. That's my firm belief. I mean, practice is very important, but if you're practicing, let's say you have a bad habit and you practice that bad habit, then it becomes an even worse habit, and then it becomes harder to break that habit. I know this just from experience. There was a couple bad habits I used to have, and it took a long time to get over those bad habits. Now I don't feel so bad, because those bad habits are gone, whereas it was really hard to get away from those bad habits. One of them being I used to pet the line too much, and lines used to look blown out. Just like when you do tattoos, if a line blows out on skin, it is almost impossible to fix it. And since we work with ink, it can become impossible to fix those things. Now at this stage is where you want to really think about how you're going to approach the hair. You can do two things here with the hair. You could either line it and color it in and use your textures that way, or you can just go in with the marker and just color the hair without lining it with the pen. And what that does, it gives it a real natural hair look, but it is a lot trickier. Because this character has so much detail in her hair, I'm not going to do that. But a character, kind of like, if you watch my one of my videos in the past with, oh man, I already forgot her name. She's a Street Fighter character, and what I did is I made her hair all one color, and then with the other colors I gave it depth and made it pop. And so you can do that. And one of the reasons why I pet the line so much is I have a really bad trimmer. So sometimes it's hard to keep that stable line. But again, that's a bad habit, and I try to break it. I don't want to use my disabilities as an excuse. And if you fix those things as you draw, then the next time you go, it becomes less of a problem than the very next time. And then by the time you don't realize that you already got rid of that bad habit. Alright, and the same thing with the Saitama. So we want to look for contrasting colors. And her hair is blonde, and I gotta put these eyebrows in here. They're so thin. So if you want, you can actually black out the background, because in Sailor Moon, whenever they transformed, the background would kind of black out. So, and I'm only gonna just kind of show me where the pupils are gonna be, because we're gonna black that out with ink. And then her hair flows over here. And it wraps around her. And always draw what you see, not what you draw. So basically saying that you want to make sure that you, especially if you're using a reference photo, you want that reference photo to pop out. Alright, so the pencil stage is pretty much done. Here's when you kind of look through it and see if there's anything that you want to add, omit. I'm just going to add a couple strands of hair in the back, because most humans, our hair kind of flows in the back. Little flakes of hair sticking out. Alright, so I'll be right back with the pens. Alright, so now we're going to line. So I found a .05 that actually has somewhat of a tip, but it looks like the ink is running dry, so might be petting the line quite a bit here, and I don't want to do that. So if I notice the lines aren't coming down the way I want them to, I am going to switch to a different marker or a different pen. It's not too bad. And if you notice, a lot of artists, you might do this as well, which is a good thing, is you never want to stay on one area too long. And this goes for digital art as well. And it's nothing about technicality, it's more about you don't want to get bored. And what I mean by that is, if you get bored with a drawing, that's when you start to get sloppy. You want to stay as interested as possible. And if you're like me and you take commissions, sometimes the subject matter can be just as boring. So you want to make sure you don't get bored with the piece you're working on. So moving around the area, if you're struggling with something, move to another area. And you're going to notice that by the time you get back to it, you're like, oh, okay, I think I figured out what I want to change. Or you want to attack something a different way, which, you know, it's just like walking away from something that's frustrating you. That's why I think video games are so important. Video games have taught me patience, because there's been multiple video games where I have to like put it down, walk away, because something is frustrating me. I remember Doom for the Xbox. Well, I played it on Switch first, but the new Doom, I was constantly dying. And I was like, I have to walk away. And then 2 days later, I picked it back up, and I was able to beat the boss. Because I was able to just sit back and think about it, and think about all the patterns. I know, right? Just thinking about one game. But to me, video games are important for, especially artists. It's a good way to reset your brain and get some influence. It really does help. And you see here, I'm doing one pass through. I'm not trying to blow out the lines. It's gonna look a lot more, not professional. I don't want to say professional because, but it's gonna look a lot more finished. If you scratch too much to the lines like this, look at the difference between doing one line and then going over and doing multiple passes. You see, it's gonna look scratchy, and that's what you want to avoid, especially if you're doing, especially if you're doing a commission piece for someone. You don't want the amateurish look. And even when I first did my very first comic cover, I look back at it now and I can see all the scratchiness on it. And I think to myself, I'm like, man, I'm surprised the comic book company didn't go back and say, hey man, this looks scratchy. Because before I did comics, I was doing movie storyboards. And with storyboards, you can get a little messy. Because it doesn't have to, it's not a finished piece, it's just a little detail. Or not detail, storytelling. What's detail? I'm thinking detail and then I say storytelling. Yeah, so storyboard's very similar to a comic. The only thing is there's no word balloons and there's not multiple panels. Most of the time it's just one shot. So what you're doing with a storyboard is you're taking the script and kind of telling the story using drawings. And it's really important because it helps the director, it helps the actors figure out, what works best. And half the time they don't use the same shots, but it's a good launching off point. And animation has the same kind of storyboarding. So nothing really has to look finished in a storyboard. It's just got to tell a story. So if you're a good storyteller with art, becoming a storyboardist might be an option for you. There's so many different fields of art, and drawing is one of the most sought after skills. And honestly, I'm a firm believer that art is a skill that a lot of people possess. You just have to be dedicated to it. Because when I first started drawing, I didn't think I was very good. But I love drawing. I just can't seem to ever put down a pencil. I even have a field journal where I take with me to trips or doctor's offices, and I'll just sit there and sketch, because half the time doctor's offices got you waiting for an hour, half an hour. And you could draw a lot in half an hour. This video alone proves that. I don't think I'm even at the half hour point yet, and I've already got Sailor Moon pretty much drawn out, and this is a completed piece, whereas in your sketchbook you can draw multiple images within half an hour. And that's another thing too, is drawing, just to draw. See, I overlapped some lines there, so that's going to look a lot thicker, but it's okay. When you sketch a bunch of little different things out, what that does is, I call it defragging. For those who don't know what defragging is, it's something that computers, you used to have to do to computers to kind of get them run a little faster. And I thoroughly believe that sketching is a way for your brain to defrag. You're having a rough day? Just sketch a little bit. You'll notice that not only will you start thinking a little bit better, things will just start coming to you easier. And I really do believe that it helps your brain. Sometimes when I'm done drawing, I feel more awake. I feel lively. I feel like I can attack the day. And that's really important, because as much as we want to sit there and draw all day, we do have lives. I have kids, and sometimes it can be rough to deal with kids, especially because they're going through a lot of the same things. You know, they're frustrated, they're having bad days. So if you're having a bad day, a kid can really feel that. It's better to get your stress out in a different way. If your stress reliever is video games, do that. If your stress reliever is going to play bowling, go do that. I mean, do people still bowl? I love bowling. But you get what I mean. Alright, so we got pretty much this all lined up now. So different when it's not sped up, right? You can see how slow I am. When I'm sped up, it can kind of look like I'm going really fast, but it's actually the opposite. Sometimes I really focus on one line to really make it pop. One off line can really throw off a whole picture. And the reason why I left the eyes for last is because I started with the eyes. So you know, I don't like to start I don't like to continue where I started. It's that same thing. You don't want to get bored with an area, and also it'll give you time to really go back to it and really see if you made any mistakes. And here I can really fix the eye and make any alterations that I feel are necessary. If you can see the original drawing, I altered the eye quite a bit. From the blue pencil stage all the way to the pencil stage, and now to the pen, I really altered the eye. Excuse me. Alright, so here, and I noticed something else here. I really want to rotate this eye a little bit. Just to give it that illusion that she is turning her head right at you. And it's very important to get some music too. I'm using copyright-free music right now just because I don't want to get a copyright strike. Alright, and she's got a cute little nose, so let's keep it nice, cute and little. And now we can fill in those pupils or irises. I took so much anatomy and I still screw up parts of the eye or terminology. And we can add some little details in the eyes. We're going to be filling in a lot of the eye with the paint marker, but we still want to get the base color in there, which is going to be blue. And we're going to use shading to really pop her to life here. Alright, so now before we even get to the marker stage, I want to kind of accentuate certain things. So anything that is not from the light source, I'm pretending the light source is coming from here, we're going to put a really broad line. It's going to be a little different than Saitama, because if you remember the Saitama, we kind of lined the whole thing. But here, because she's in space, and space is full of light, we're going to have a lot of space coming from different, or a lot of light coming from different sources. So we're not going to completely block her out, just enough to make it really stand out. And little details, make little details really come to life. Like her jawline. And then back here. Now this pen is a little bit leaky, so I'm trying to avoid smearing. Alright, so next up we're going to do markers. I'm going to let it dry and then we'll go back to it. Alright, so we let it dry a little bit. So I grabbed a couple markers for the skin tone. They're all a little bit different, so what I'm going to do is grab my trusty, I'm going to have to grab a new one. Let's see here. I literally just put it down. Alright, so we're just going to grab another scrap paper here and see what works best. See, I think this is too pink for her skin tone, so maybe we can use that for the shading. This looks like it's closer to her skin tone. Actually, that's a little too dark. So this one seems to be good mid-tone, but it's still a little too dark. I do have silk, so this looks like it'll be a lot better for the skin tone. So now we're gonna grab that and just start filling in the skin. And you can go over the ink. Just be careful, it could smudge. I've made that mistake many times. I thought the ink was dry, made a couple pass-throughs with the marker, and then got ink all over the negative space. And especially with my leaky 0.3 marker, don't want to risk it. Alright, so this can be really therapeutic. If any of you guys have any anxiety issues, my anxiety is not too bad. I have more just anxiety issues like when I get on a plane and stuff like that. I don't like to be driven. I like to drive myself. It really messes with my anxiety, but this can really help if you guys, anybody out there struggling with anxiety. So it does look a little dark right now. It will start to lighten up a bit. Let's see, this was a little darker. So this is what we're going to use for the shading on the face. Under the neck here. So we darken the right areas because the shading is really gonna be the same areas where we darken. You see how we darken behind the head? So this is the darkness of the faces. And we're going to leave this area open here, and then just put a little bit of shading there, and just a tad bit there. And then you can take an even darker, I think this eggshell is a lot darker, so you can kind of really push those darker areas. You know, the original anime is what I like to call two-toned, which they only really use two tones, so if you really want to make it more vibrant, you can. You don't have to. And now we have all the skin covered up, except missed the arm here. So it's good to kind of step back for a second, because you can miss a lot of areas if you don't notice it. And this can really shade the muscle here. Alright, so now we can either work on the eyes or the hair. Since the hair takes up, you know, so much of the card, we're going to do the hair. So I'm going to go with a lightning yellow for the base color of the hair. And again, just trying to avoid those thicker lines so we don't have any bleed through and smudging. The thin lines have probably dried by now, so I'm not too worried about those, but see these thicker lines here, I'm trying to avoid, because I don't want those lines to smudge out. But this is so therapeutic to me. And doing this kind of mid-tone yellow is really going to help when you do the shading. And because we're really not doing a raw blend, you know, like light to dark, we're doing more mid to dark, you can really do a lot with the highlight marker, which is the paint marker. And you can already see the contrast from the skin and the yellow. It's really starting to pop. And once the blue gets in there from her eyes, now what you can do too is, I'm not going to do it. I'm actually thinking I'm going to go with a purple background. But since her eyes are blue and it doesn't take up too much of the actual drawing, you can even make the background like a darker version of blue, because what that does is makes everything else that isn't blue on her really stand out. And I saw one more spot that I missed. Luckily, because that is right where the light is hitting, you just have to fill it in. You know, pointing out your own mistakes is okay, you know, and you can't grow if you don't notice your own mistakes. You don't have to get completely perfectly in the line here, because especially if you're going to do a dark background, because you can hide a lot of that with the dark background. Alright, so the hair is all in. So now we're going to go with a caramel for the shade of the hair. And that's the nice thing about anime, is the two-tone nature of it. you can work with 2 colors and it'll still look really vibrant because it's anime. And then the mangas are all mostly black and white, so if you really want to and kind of feel a little frisky, you can really go with a different color set that they don't normally have, and put a little indentation here for the hair. And then from here, take the broad side of the brush and just follow it down. And you can even use your brush to really push it up. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take that same lightning yellow and we're going to go over it so that the colors blend. So this is the lightning yellow, and you're going to take that and just blend over it. This is the same color you already put down. You can go with a different yellow, and I'll show you what that effect does. So if you grab cadmium yellow, which is my favorite yellow, you can go into the middle here, and you see it kind of disappears because this is actually darker than the lightning yellow, or brighter, but it gives it a grittier hair look. And now we got to work on the crown. The crown is gold. So with gold, I'm going to use a nice mix of lemon yellow, Napoli yellow, and ochre. And then I'm going to show you, for the shading, you can actually go with an orange. So go really light, because we want it to be different than the hair. If we were to do the same color as the hair, it would really get lost in it. So, and because it's metal, you can do those little flares there, and then the Napoli yellow. Just hit little areas here, and then we're going to take the orange. My favorite orange is chrome orange, but there's also Chinese orange. Chinese orange is a tad bit darker, and since this crown is a little lighter, that's why I picked the chrome orange. And chrome is metal, so now for the gem on her forehead of the crown, I'm going to do the cadmium red. This is such a small spot. And then garnet, because garnet is another stone. Just hit little areas with it, because we're going to hit it with the highlight marker anyways. Same thing here. And then use the garnet. And then her necklace is more of a pinkish, and same thing with the bow. So I'm going to start off with peach and then use a begonia. And then with the begonia is really going to make it pop, and then we're going to use lipstick red for the shade. I'm actually going to use coral. I think coral is going to really make it really stand out. The lipstick red's just a little too dark. And just hit the areas that are going to be shaded here. Alright, so we got that. And then the lipstick red, just to finish off those spots. This part's a little smaller, so we can just hit it with just one color. And now the handkerchief and eyes, which are blue. These white areas, in the original picture there's not much there, so you can shade them if you want to. You don't have to. So I'm going to start with an ocean mist to really just put down a nice base, because markers are a lot like watercolor. They tend to work better if the area is already wet or saturated. So you see it's kind of a base. And now we're going to go in. A lot of my markers are completely dried out. So I'm gonna be using a Chow Phthalo Blue, because my Phthalo Blue from yesterday was pretty much dried out. Just hit little areas here. On a realistic drawing, the human eye has so many different colors, unless, you know, someone has brown eyes. But so you can throw in some greens in there, but because this is an animated character, you have the liberties to kind of mess around with just that one color set. So now I'm going to grab the same phthalo blue for the handkerchief that hangs around her neck. And you see how easy it's sticking to the paper now, because we put that ocean mist as a base. And I'm going to grab a different blue for the shading on it, because we don't want it to clash with the eyes. We also don't want it to be super dark, so I think we got Antwerp blue. I feel like this might work just as good. Well, that looks good. And her chin and head are going to be covering the light source here. So just keep that dark. And then here, and just a little bit here. And for the moon on her ear, I'm just going to tap a little bit. You can get liberal with it. You don't have to go too heavy. And then just... And then right in the center, you can hit it with a little orange. And it gives it that really cool effect. Now, I know I said I wasn't going to do much with the white, but to me it just doesn't look finished. So I'm going to go in and... So this is a grayish lavender. I like to use this for metal most of the time, but just to hit those spots and bring these white areas to life. And then just a little bit here. Alright, so now we are ready for the background, and then we can work on the highlights. And I think violet, just a straight up purple. Actually, we can do a blueberry, and then really bring it out with the violet, because you see how this is like an in-between blue and purple. It's not really blue, it's not really purple. It's a nice mixture here. Alright. Now this, normally I can do a sketch card in about half an hour, but just because I'm doing the instructional, it does take a little longer. Timing yourself is important, but not if you're just starting out. When you're starting out, take as much time as possible, but when you're doing it professionally, it's important to really map out how long something takes you, because you don't want to undercharge yourself. Undercharging yourself is not good, because then you're overworking, and as much as you love art, you don't want to sell yourself short. And I notice so many artists out there who really undercharge themselves, and they do amazing work. So you don't want that to happen. So you see how now the purple, it looks like the sky is fading to purple. And originally I was going to do space, but I think if she's just flying into the midnight sky or the night sky, it's just going to look a lot, it's going to really pop, you know. See it, the paper is getting so soaked, it's starting to pick up now. Alright, perfect. Alright, so now we can do the fun part, highlights. Now, TOS Studios asked about highlighter markers and highlighter pens, and these are my three go-to. The Uni Posca marker, this is paint, whereas this is gel. So you get a different effect with both, but either one works just fine. So I'm going to shake it a little bit. I like to put some on the paper so I know how much paint is actually left in it. And you want to get it soaked a little bit, so when you put down, it actually comes out the way you want it to. I'm going to do one big reflection here, one here, a couple lines there, and we want to copy the same one over here, a couple lines there, and right there. There are some other areas that you might want to hit with the highlighter. If they're tinier, then I would use the gel marker. The big difference is the gel markers are different sizes, so this one says 10. That means it's a broader tip. And then this one's an 8. This one's a thinner tip. I have a 5, but it just doesn't put down the way I like it to, so I don't use it very often. I use it for bigger pieces, for the little details, which, oddly enough, we have a little detail here. So Sailor Moon has some lines on her handkerchief here, so we're going to use the gel for that. And it's the same thing with the line, is you do not want to pet the line too much. You want it to look as natural as possible. So if you do one pass through and you've already done it, I would just leave it alone. And if you want to really make the piece stand out a little bit more, you can take your paint marker and you can make a star field. And this gets a little tedious because they're all different sizes. And you can even hit it with a little line, kind of like shooting stars. And now to the fun part. The fun part is the trusty old signature. I never get tired of doing it. It's fun to do this signature. Well, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. Hopefully you guys enjoy this style of video. I can do more if it's really helping doing these sketch card tutorials. It's a smaller canvas, but all the concepts work in a bigger piece. So let me know in the comments down below what you think. Leave a thumbs up. Getting the camera there. Thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Thumbs down if you thought it stunk. And thank you so much. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do. I also have a Patreon, and I also have a Teespring. So right now it's just the logo of the channel, but I hope to have some other t-shirts done in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, don't forget to keep it over 9,000.